Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event. We're gonna let people in in the call, so we'll start in 1 or 2 minutes. Great to see everyone joining. Okay. It's 2 minutes past 12, so I think we are going to get started. So, hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Xandra Aretz, and BPMA, I am part of the team that is organizing the events for BPMA, the Boston Product Management Association, and welcome to our September lunch event. So today's event is all about leveling up as a product manager in the age of AI, and it's a very interesting and very relevant topic right now. It's not only booming very quickly, but it's definitely something that is here to stay. So the impact on product management is, of course, undeniable and very exciting. And so the transition to AI requires us as product managers and product marketing managers to level up as well. And today we will get a lot of insights in how AI will impact product managers and how we can embrace this. But before we begin, first a quick introduction for those of you who are new to BPMA or joining for the first time. We organize events like these ones regularly, and BPMA is the leading professional association in the Greater Boston region. We're dedicated to the career development of product management and product marketing professionals. So what we do, we plan events like these online, but also in-person events in Boston. We also offer mentorship programs, and we have some interesting content like blogs on our website. So if you would like to learn more about what BPMA offers, you can visit the website bostonproducts.org. Of course, we would love to thank our sponsors today. Because of them, we are able to bring events like these to you, and we greatly appreciate their support. A big thank you to Pragmatic Institutes, NDT, and product boards, and numerous other sponsors that you see here. We encourage you to check out their websites, as they're all very interesting resources for product managers. So before we begin, a few guidelines that I would like to mention. We encourage you to put the cameras on today. We also encourage networking. So in the Zoom chat, please share your name, your title, organization, and where you're located. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go. We will definitely ask them during this event. So then I would like to welcome our speaker of today. We are really excited to have Doug Levin here. It's an honor to have you here today. So thank you so much for carving out the time to tell us more about product management and AI. And we're looking forward to it. So I'm going to give the floor to you to introduce yourself and to get started.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you see the screen? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. The screen highlights an AI product that I used my photograph and I ran it through, and as a result, I could add disco lights to the background, or it added disco lights for me, and it improved, it improved my hairline, it improved my looks. AI is a remarkable thing, of course, and we're gonna dive into some of the details here. But first, a note about my background. I'm an executive in residence at the Harvard Business School. I'm actually a member of a laboratory called the Laboratory for Innovation in Science at Harvard. I teach a class called the Startup Academy that this year is evolving into sort of an AI startup kind of class. I've been teaching this class for the last 4 or 5 years. I've also taught in the past at MIT, but professionally, I worked at Microsoft in the past. I worked at Microsoft for around 10 years. And over the course of time, I founded a company called Black Duck Software that I founded in December of 2002. And it exited in 2017 to Synopsys. And over the course of time, we built up a company from me and my one of my favorite dogs in my life, Trent, who started off the company, to 553 employees. And over the course of time, we had a whole bunch of subsidiaries worldwide. And during that period, we offered a platform that interrogated source code and found binaries as well as other objects in source code, and provided a license and a compliance solution in addition to identifying malware and other threats in the source code, and then as well as binaries, and offering support and a solution for that. So Black Duck is probably what I'm best known for, but I've done a whole bunch of startups in the Boston area and elsewhere. Currently involved in around 20 companies, most of which are deeply involved with AI, and I've derived a large part of the presentation from my learnings from this. I've been teaching the AI thing at HBS for like 3 or 4 years. So over the course of time, I've been working with both MIT as well as HBS kind of startups. And so what I'm seeing, there's no question about it, the companies have turned pretty sharply in the direction of doing LLMs as well as other types of AI applications. And I'll touch on that as well. So let's talk for a moment about the agenda. I'm going to quickly cover AI applications just to create a level set, and then talk about the great demarcation briefly, which is largely around ChatGPT, and then focus on the ways PMs can level up, and then talk about the future and looking forward into various applications. I'll touch briefly also on the recommended readings, and then we'll do a Q&A for 20, 30 minutes, all depending on how quickly I can get through this material. It's important to note that the chat is a great area to put your questions, but as I'm doing a presentation, I can't simultaneously curate those questions. So we may have to go through hand raising and other selection processes during the Q&A. So with that, let's start off with applications. Very important for product managers to understand the span of applications and AI categories first and foremost. Secondarily, the AI tools that help either generate it or become the structure by which the AI applications are built. And then the application areas or use cases. This is the province of product managers worldwide, where you talk about applications, use cases, ICPs, and ultimately we'll talk about the industries that it's used by. So computer vision has been around for a really long time, and it's based on a neural network kind of rubric. And some of the applications are image recognition, object detection, et cetera. You think of computer vision as the what happens in semiconductor board and chip production, as well as in medical imaging. There's a really cool startup in the Boston area that started like 3 or 4 years ago and well funded. This company basically looks at dental radiation or X-rays, I should say, and can detect cancers in teeth far better than, or increasingly better than a radiologist who's reviewing the X-rays. So this is, I don't have to tell you, that's real detail work. The AVs are automated vehicles or autonomous vehicles like the Tesla family, as well as other, increasingly other EVs that are autonomous. And there in computer vision plays a big role. NLPs are a really important part of AIs. This is where human-like prompts, like chatbots, for example, give you an opportunity to interact with an AI in a very personal way, sometimes in a retail commercial kind of way, but also in increasingly in a variety of other ways, like what you're going to find over time are doctors using chatbots. So this is a really effective way of interacting with people. Recommendation engines have been around for many years. This is a province of data science as well as AI. ML algorithms drive these. On the security side, we're increasingly seeing the convergence between AI and cybersec, especially, but also other securities, other form of security applications. And so this is detecting, identifying, and remediating malwares. But what's very important to understand is that there's two sides of the AI picture here. It's the companies that are building the cybersec and security applications in response to the bad actors who are basically using AIs in order to penetrate companies and create threats. So this is a very interesting escalating kind of game between the security companies and the bad actors, where AI is not just being used passively or in a limited way, it's an expansive way, and basically escalating the entire interaction or kind of warfare between the two sides. On fraud detection, very involved with a company called Fiverity that does fraud detection in banks. This is it was a fascinating application of AI to synthetic identity fraud. The bad actors were creating tens of thousands of synthetic identities and hitting up banks, especially the large banks, but also community banks and various other banks, and trying to penetrate their customer service kind of arrangements and new customer application process, loans, credit cards, and all these other things. So SIF, or synthetic identity fraud, is a massive problem in banks as well as other applications like government, et cetera. And getting this fraud detected and remediated is a very important part of, it's a very important AI application. And then we have biometrics, which you are probably familiar with in one form or another. These are chips, or these are, applications in hospitals to improve, the actual recognition of individuals and patients, as well as all the way through diagnosis. So an additional set of applications include predictive maintenance, which many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with through data centers, or through other types of predictive maintenance. The combination of predictive maintenance and robots is a really fascinating area. There are a number of great articles that have been written about that area. Voice assistants, we all know that ChatGPT has gone multimodal, including voice now, and in addition to that, we have speech recognition and NLPs, which are attempting to understand voice. Siri is one example. The other example is there are many examples of these devices which are responsive to voice. Alexa is another one. Google Assistant is another one. We're going to see a propagation of these in part because ChatGPT is going to enable them. But this is, the voice assistants are, a set of them are the software set, and the other set is the combination of hardware or device plus the AI and the various types of AI that are built in there. Healthcare is exploding when it comes to, in a very positive way, when it comes to AI. Medical imaging leading the battle now for 5-6 years. There have been a whole set of applications in this area. Neural networks in genomics research is absolutely critical and tied to expansive use of CRISPR, Cas90, if you're familiar with the genomics area, which is enabling technology. On the game side, just type into ChatGPT, write me up a game, and it will actually help you detail a lot of the elements of a game. And so it's already kind of preloaded to do that kind of thing. Game playing agents, as well as neural networks and reinforcement learning, are going to make game playing and video games especially really, really exciting in the coming years. AI has already been built in there in most of the games for years. And robots, as I mentioned before, extensive use of AI. I'm going to take a breath and introduce you to the great demarcation. I am sure everybody on this Zoom call is aware of the introduction of ChatGPT in November of 22. Basically, there was a tidal change in the computer industry, and I call it the computer industry because it's not only the software industry, but it's also the chip industry, as well as the general computer industry, as a result of ChatGPT. ChatGPT 2.0, very few users. 2.5, very few users. When 3.5 was, when 3.5 was introduced in November 22, it had a user interface that was very similar to Google. And if you don't already know this, ChatGPT was more or less conceptualized as a disruptive force against the Google search bar. And when you think about the consequences of that, you realize a number of different things. First of all, Google search is very susceptible to change. Secondly, the business models behind Google search are going to change. Thirdly, however, ChatGPT represents a new wave of interaction with a search-like engine. And ChatGPT now has, in a subsequent version 4.0, and the latest ones, as well as Claude AI by Anthropic, as well as Bard by Google, especially Bard, has an integrated search as well. But it's very important, and this is one of your kind of sort of action items for you to do, is compare search today with a ChatGPT or another generative AI and look at the differences. The differences are significant. You could ask ChatGPT or another generative AI to write a blog post for you, to write a product plan for you, a marketing plan for you, do an analysis of a whole set of things. Basically, it is extremely flexible. When you use the search bar in Google search, for example, and the other search engines, I don't mean to not mention them, but obviously Google search has major market share. When you start using these other search engines, you realize it's a fairly limited, or the last couple of months, it's a fairly limited environment where you put in a single kind of question, and the question then becomes the means by which you get a long listing of the answers. Whereas with generative AI, you get a very customized kind of response in a narrative type of form. And this can be immeasurably helpful in impacting the marketing communications function of a company. Or people are writing entire movie scripts with ChatGPT, or video scripts, as you will. So one of the things that you have to be aware of is that there is a great deal of authenticity that's involved here. With ChatGPT 3.5, you've got limited data driven decision making, and increasingly one of the major themes in both ChatGPT and the other generative AIs are greater and greater data-centric decision making. That is actually spreadsheets or spreadsheet-like formats or an analysis of data, which will be enabled by the generative AI. Recognize that many businesses with manual processes or humans in the loop are going to basically be augmented by these capabilities or restructured. The journalism industry in general is one of the first areas of impact for ChatGPT. And so what you're going to see is a transformation in, and also expansion in content, which is in some ways positive, but in other ways, it just raises this whole issue of authenticity and also hallucinations. So I'll stop for a moment and explain. Hallucinations are things that occur in AIs, especially ChatGPT today, where you can see it yourself, where you put in a question and there is either data missing or there are gaps in logic, there's simply gaps in the response to the engineered inquiry with ChatGPT, and hallucinations are things that are generally wrong. And so Bard had a whole bunch of hallucinations in January when it was introduced. They have reduced the number of hallucinations significantly. But hallucinations, as it's currently used, is not related to LSD. It's related to AI and its generation of errors or just things that are entirely wrong in logic, data analysis, and elements of the response to the inquiry you put into ChatGPT, as well as other AIs. So with that being said,
Doug, we have one question for you, which is a bit related to this. So Lucas Myers is asking, what is your take on the very recent voice AI capability and also deconstructing, for example, product design?
Well, that's an entirely separate, those are two separate Zooms. AI exists in various modalities. Voice and various other modalities exist in generative AIs recently. So part of the product introduction, or let's call it the technology roadmap for OpenAI, from ChatGPT all the way through some of the other AIs or generative AIs, have gradually increased the additional capabilities in the imaging, music, coding, and voice areas. So most recently, for example, Bard has added voice. Most recently, however, for example, ChatGPT has added expanded imagery that you can put into ChatGPT. I would strongly recommend everybody on the Zoom call to just go to Google Images, grab an image, put it on your desktop in one form or another, and then run it through ChatGPT and see what the response is. It really does, well, at least the times that I used it, it did a very good job in identifying the imagery. So the same thing goes with voice. Running it through, and as a related matter, music. So one of the things I strongly recommend people look at are the alternatives to ChatGPT, Bard, and Claude. In the text area, look at Jasper. In the coding area, look at Lex, Lex.ai. In the imagery area, DALL-E, of course, is standard. Midjourney is standard. Stable Diffusion is standard. In the music area, MuseNet, Amper, but getting back to Lucas's question, there are a whole bunch of coding applications that really enhance. You might call them co-pilots, the whole category of co-pilots, but especially the GitHub Copilot, as well as CodeStarter and Codex. These are all great enhancements for developers. This is not necessarily replacing developers. It's making, I'll tell you exactly what it's doing because I've seen it in a whole bunch of my companies that I've been working with. It's making better use of the time for the best programmers. It is improving the level of the programming of very good programmers. And it's significantly increasing the productivity of good programmers. So below good programmers, they are, they're going to benefit a lot. But when you talk about good, very good, and excellent programmers, those three levels get productivity, greater efficiencies, and actually they found, what I've heard is directly from them, it's a fun new tool. These are fun new tools to use. Now, from a product management standpoint, this is a really challenging thing if you're not familiar with these tools, you have to start using them. And you have to interact with your engineers. I'm assuming that many of you are in the software product management area. You have to start using these tools, and encouraging developers to use them, but get ahead of the whole thing by simply knowing the generative AIs that use text and the generative AIs that are code generators. Okay, Lucas? So with that, I'd like to go back to talking a little bit about the future with respect to AI. Oh, sorry. I skipped a slide for some reason. So let's talk about leveling up. This is central to a really significant concern of product managers. How do you level up under these circumstances? And this is not like a game. This is not a game level up insofar as there's a linear path in a game to leveling up. This is, you can actually take great strides in your involvement with your personal involvement with AI, as well as your company's involvement with AI. And here's a number of things to think about to do that leveling up. One, you have to get fluent with AI, ML, and data science fundamentals. Data science is integrated. I probably don't have to say this to most of you, but to some of you, it's absolutely critical to both the efficient use, the efficient development of AI applications, as well as the efficient functioning of AI, as well as the use of its results. So data science is inextricably bound to many AI and probably most AI applications and ML. So you need to know these fundamentals. On the generative AI side, the three that I listed here, ChatGPT, Bard, and Claude, are absolutely essential for daily life in terms of texts. But coming along are some great generative AIs. If you don't know about Bloomberg's generative AI, it's going to be awesome when it hits in October. It's going to be monumental. It's going to be another tsunami, just like ChatGPT was one like big tsunami hit. This is going to be another tsunami hit, because basically you're going to be able to look at companies and competition and markets and equities and all that stuff, and finance and even accounting, and get answers far quicker than it's almost inconceivable that Google can do some of these things, and also integrated into the text capabilities of ChatGPT, for example. So all this stuff is going to be combined and integrated. LLMs will talk to LLMs through APIs, as well as UI type of integrations. And so one of the things that you're going to have to do, especially interacting with the coders, is just brush up on your technical skills and expand your technical skills. You got to understand MLs, you got to understand LLMs, and you've got to understand especially AI databases like Pinecone and the others. So this is all feeding, it's all be converging in some ways, but also there are distinctive areas where you have to develop a huge amount of expertise in interacting with the engineers. And I mentioned that with the code generators, and this is going to get more and more complex as more and more products hit the market. You know, it goes without saying in leveling up, you've got to think about problem solving and critical thinking, but the other thing you have to develop simultaneously with your technical knowledge and leveling up is expanding your knowledge about ethics and responsibilities. Responsibility in this area and transparency is all about understanding the source of the product of AI and the actual biases that go into biases or biases. I think it's biases that go into ML and other and algorithms and data as well. So there are many case studies on this on the web. There is a lot of expertise on the web. I've suggested a book or two at the end where you can grab and learn about this area. It's absolutely critical that you understand this, because if you're a product manager and you ship an algorithm or a product with AI that has bias built into it, your company may be in trouble. On the other hand, if you have a clean housekeeping seal of approval, you can actually have a nice PR kind of wave connected to it. The other thing that you have to think about is blending AI knowledge with product management best practices. So I'm assuming everybody knows product management best practices, but now what you're going to have to do is integrate AI knowledge with those product managements as a AI product manager. There's a very interesting set of discussions that have that started with ChatGPT. Unfortunately, it was it really started years ago internally into many of the companies like Meta and like Facebook and many of the other, or originally Facebook and that became Meta, but also Google especially and other companies, about the nature of the product management job. And increasingly, the product management job will involve AI. And as a result, there was an argument, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, that was, you could see it in Reddit, but you could also hear about it in the halls of various, especially California startups. This issue of changing the name from product manager to AI product manager, and it's happened to one extent or another at Meta. It's happened. It's happened for years at Google. Essentially, what's happened here, Amazon has a couple. It's essentially people who think constantly about AI with respect to the product. So if you can think of Amazon, for example, as a cloud environment, and how do you develop AIs that make it easier for customers to connect to Amazon? And how do you develop AIs which help internally everybody deliver a better service? How do you develop AIs to help the customer service people? How do you develop AIs to help the salespeople? Now, while there's a priority stack in all that, and the customer is very high up on that priority stack, because of your setting priorities and because you're developing these new AIs, you really have to know the underlying models and algos which go into these AIs and how to leverage them. And I can elaborate on this in the Q&A. You got to be aware of AI products and AI integrated products. My recommendation is subscribe to a bunch of newsletters. My first recommendation is subscribe to my newsletter. This goes without saying. But once you get beyond that one, which is, there's a lot of AI in that and related to startups, you're going to get a whole bunch of AI newsletters which range from, for example, Michael Parek's AI newsletter, which is designed to kind of take the markets and analyze them relative to financial markets. And then Eric Engineer on the Pragmatic Engineer, that's the name of his newsletter. Wonderful insights on how Google is using AI. Wonderful insights into how to use various AIs in the course of product development. And this is from a coder's point of view. And so you get a big range of newsletters. Strongly recommend, subscribing to at least 3 or 4, potentially upwards of 10. I'm in the like 12 to 15 category, and I just toss out a lot of the stuff that comes across either through email or through our, or in the various ways I read it on my mobile phone. So what's important to know is that this area, first of all, there are people who are doing analytics in this area that gives you the jumping off point of the springboarding effect that can be really effective in product management. I had my own set of like revelations with respect to one of my companies that's doing fraud detection just through some newsletters that I read. And these were more technical than general. On the other hand, interacting with the VCs, it's absolutely required that you read these newsletters in order. And by the way, there are VCs who write very good newsletters. So there's one coming out of Glasswing where, I forgot the name of, Jesus, I interact with her all the time, but VC from Glasswing, who's done a bunch of AI investments, she writes this wonderful technically oriented blog, and I think it's on Substack, but I apologize for not knowing the name. The final thing that I'll say, which is absolutely critical, because you as a product manager, more often than not, are in a position to be an influencer of not only inside your company, but outside your company, is develop an AI vision. This AI vision is critical. It's the underlying superstructure for talking about AI. So for example, I started getting into AI in part because of my Black Duck background and several other companies that I'm involved with. And I got into it probably because there was these issues of bias and finding authenticity in the AI products or the production, what's produced from AIs. And these companies that I was involved with, I realized that there was a whole area of bias and related areas, authenticity, that I just needed to learn about. And so, years ago, before Black Duck exited, I started digging into this. And that in turn started expanding my AI vision. It was more than ML. It was more than individual tools in the ML area. ChatGPT, of course, expanded greatly everyone's vision of AI. Literally everyone who uses ChatGPT has AI on their desktop. When you use Bing, you are using ChatGPT underneath the surface. And when you're using increasingly Google Search as well as Bard, you're using a combination of search and a generative AI. So there is a whole range of AI that you can feed your AI vision, but you have to develop one. And the reason why is because, to be really clear on this subject, you have to see where it's going and how it's going to influence you and your career, as well as your company. And of course, because you're a product manager, you have to understand how AI is going to influence products, not all the way through from design, all the way through from the code base and agile development and all the other things in between. So with that, I'll pause and Xandra, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we got a few, well, one question and a few people that mentioned in the chat, topics related also to being careful with the company code and putting that in an LLM. So the question was from Andy Morris. How do you think about balancing providing code and confidential information to AI tools versus getting the value from the tool? If you have maybe any best practices on where to draw the line.
So there are three subjects there. LLM, I could just spend hours and hours, probably multiple sessions on. And then the whole issue of factoring code for either an LLM or for AIs. And then the final piece is the whole transparency bias as well as authenticity kind of issues. So with the LLMs, as product managers, you have to be acutely aware of operating expenses connected to compute. That is first, like, top of mind. LLMs are really expensive. So one of the reasons why OpenAI, if you don't already know this, needed a $10 billion investment in them from Microsoft, which came in various forms. But one of the reasons why that it was a vast investment in OpenAI was because compute is very expensive for LLMs. So there was something that was kind of floating around a Reddit that said OpenAI spends $500,000 a day on compute for OpenAI, for the Microsoft version of OpenAI. I don't have to tell you, that's expensive. So don't underestimate this OpEx thing connected to doing LLMs. So one of the things you heard for a while were all these engineers who say, hey, we're going to do an LLM and we're going to just do it in record time and we're going to train it up in record time and all this other stuff. This is partially FOMA, but it's also it's enthusiasm without knowing the cost of and consequences of doing something like that. So that's part of the discussion on LLM. The other part of the discussion is it's a vast undertaking. It requires tons of engineering talent, and that talent is rare. And architectural talent all the way through coding talent. It's hard to put together LLM teams, and it's hard to maintain them, in part because you're getting people who are constantly being recruited. But that's something you have to think about. How do you staff and how do you build these LLMs? Okay, let's go to the next subject, which is the effect of AIs on on the products as well as the outer consequences of this. This is something real that only a product manager can drive into the organization. Of course, it comes from the board, CEO, and the investors. Those are sometimes sources of it. Partners will, play a role in all this. But ultimately, this is an incredibly important area which involve both the data itself, and to ensure that there are no biases in the data, and it's clean and it's reliable, as well as all the way through the programming of the AIs that go into the products, as well as your use inside the company of AIs, which could influence either on code development or other applications. So I guess the emphasis here is on caution. Caution on what's in the AIs and attempting to get transparency on that. The separate issue is when you're doing AI development, it is not like classic Python or other types of classic C or other types of compiler like applications or use. AIs behave differently. It's just development of AIs are different. So your agile schemas are going to be your epics and your and running through development of an AI product is going to be different from a software product. One of the reasons why is because training is an entirely different kind of science or sub-science, and a product manager just needs to know that. OpenAI has said to has spent 2 or 3 years training the LLM that they developed. They used resources in Africa, they used resources in the US, and also I've heard uses in the Philippines. Doing the training for AIs is in and of itself a big challenge and needs to be thought through as well as planned. So, but the coding of the AIs are in and of itself a new challenge. It's just not like classic or recent development of software. Sandra, other questions?
Yes, I actually saw that Neil, you had your hand raised. So
yes, I actually have 2 questions here. The first one has to do with the hype curve around AI. And Doug, I think you're old enough to remember the internet back in 1995 and 2000. There were millions of dollars spent on internet ads. So my question is, and then there was a huge shakeout around internet. But if we go back to AI, will there be a similar hype curve around AI that happened to the internet, where a lot of the companies that were active players in the early days, the early pioneers, no longer exist?
Okay. So I was born in the Obama administration, so I don't really remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can see that.
So more seriously is the hype curve is enormous. Let's say it was enormous. Can it be sustained? I'm sure it cannot be. So what everybody probably knows is that a million users were added in January to OpenAI. 1 million users in 1 month. There were several days prior to that where like 500,000 users were being added. And so now we've got this vast number of users of OpenAI. So it's like something in the neighborhood of 200 million or something like that. So what is actually happening? So what's happening is, in the tech industry, there's a huge amount of hype, which is basically everyone trying to instigate a bubble, an investment bubble. And you can see this with the amazing valuations that you're getting on Series A, sometimes upwards of $100 million, $150 million. Sometimes, with the way they define Series A, it's actually a Series B, and it's like 250 and half a billion at 500 million. So the hype connected to both the valuations as well as the AI is massive. So the hype is going to tail off. It just cannot be sustained. It's impossible. And so there's going to be something similar to what happened to either internet advertising. Will there be a crash? No, I don't think there's going to be a crash like the internet bubble, because the internet bubble was largely driven by equities and massive numbers of IPOs that occurred. I mean, there was I remember during the internet bubble, or my father told me during the internet bubble, that there were 10 or so software IPOs a day. And when IPOs occur, there's an intrinsic hype to them in order to make it to the market and expand. Now, the SEC would never agree with that assessment, but I think there is. So we don't have that sort of IPO and public markets driving valuations like that. What we're having is VC, and everybody knows many people know that the valuations that went sky high in 2021 have come down to earth and have been basically halved or more. And so the VC who were overinflating the values of unicorns have now, suffered the markdowns and the consequences of that, as well as the entrepreneurs and the ELT, and the product managers, and everybody else involved with the unicorn. So basically, I think a lot of people have learned a valuable lesson from that. But what's driving hype has mitigated somewhat, and so I do believe that the ChatGPT phenomenon has reduced the trajectory of the hype. However, what's going to happen is that there are going to be massive introductions to the AI domain, like, for example, Bloomberg, ChatGPT, when it's introduced, it's going to fuel it another time. A couple of AIs going public will fuel it. So over a period of time, it's going to return to kind of lumpiness in the hype wave, but I just don't think it's going to be as hyped as it was, or what my father filled me in on during the internet bubble.
Right. Yeah. My father told me the same things. So,
Sure.
But thank you.
If we don't have another one, then I'll go on to the next. So looking forward, it's fundamental for product managers to understand when you're leveling up that your key responsibilities are going to evolve. So first and foremost, strategizing about AI and products and maximizing the value of AI is going to be a clear part of your responsibilities going forward. Defining the requirements for AI products is, a best practice of product managers. So product managers are inexplicably intrinsically necessary to define product requirements. But what's changed a great deal is with LLMs, compute costs are a massive area of work that has to be done prior to the transition over to an LLM, prior to the coding of an LLM, during the coding of an LLM, and subsequently during the training and then deployment of an LLM. This is an area that would involve, so if you're familiar with the position FP&A, this is a position in finance that includes finance, the best of the finance functions, and analysis of accounting, analysis of the financial circumstances and the cash flow related to these products, and also analyzing of market conditions. A product manager is going to be in a position of having to really help the company understand compute costs, and then subsequently, mitigating risks connected to AIs. And then, these other issues are real challenging. Managing the full life cycle. So, software development life cycles are changed as a result of AIs, not just features, but literally AI products are different from SaaS, for example. Taking a SaaS and putting an AI in it is in and of itself a challenging thing. And then assessing AI model performance so everybody should be concerned about model drift. If you develop an algorithm that drives a model, that over time model drift is a factor in making the application acceptable to customers over a period of time. And if you're not aware of this stuff, you've got to be, especially product manager. And then building use cases and forecasts and stuff like that, just different in the AI world, educating customers and internal internal teams require a whole new set of marketing communication skills and tools. So explaining what the AI does, in product literature, as well as now I know this is product marketing more than product management, but it's an important consideration as you deploy these products in educating the customer. As a separate matter, I might say that product managers are really important in educating the sales force and marketing personnel on introduction of products that have AIs. And it's more demanding today than ever. Because let's face it, sales and marketing people are not as technical as you are, and not as technical as the AI and the engineers who produce it. So, a lot to cover.
Doug, there was one question from Jessica Morris, who asked if you have some recommendations or best practices for companies that are considering implementing AI or machine learning into their software offerings.
Well, so the best practices, what I would say is that whatever best practices you've been practicing before AI, you got to put it all on steroids. So, just in the testing area, preparing, training the models, these things require much more work than just deploying a SaaS. I mean, it's the most interesting subject I've had, I've covered recently, for example, is product market fit, or PMF, using AI products. How do you do that when an AI product requires a year of training of the data? So product market fit is a whole different category. So product market fit is a best practice. So you've got to adjust to the AI. I don't have enough time to go through all the best practices of product managers in the AI age. But what I'll say is all the best practices require a leveling up, and, just think about injecting steroids into it and doing it on a more expansive basis. That being said, recommending readings. Strongly recommend Kareem's book. He's a close friend of mine, and I loved reading this book when he produced it, and when he wouldn't talk to me for months as he was writing it, so I was kind of pissed off. But when the book was produced, oh my God, it's a great book. It's a great primer on getting into AI. It also helps. The reason why I included it here was, while it's not so super technical, it is a very good book to use as a primer to understand how this fits into industries. Stephen's book is absolutely essential for ChatGPT. This is a primer on, all the things. If you're thinking of doing taking an API and connecting to ChatGPT, if you're thinking of integrating ChatGPT into your solution, if you're thinking of building on top of a ChatGPT, if you're thinking of doing an LLM and avoiding the look of ChatGPT and going in a different direction, this is a very good book. Then there is the classic, or soon to be classic, AI product management book by Kumar. And it goes without saying, it's an essential book. If you're going into deep learning, Magnus's book, there are many other books, but these are the books that I like a lot. I've read, I've done book reviews on, and I'd strongly recommend reading them on your Kindle or in hardcover form. So I use ChatGPT to say thank you in 32 languages. I'd strongly recommend subscribing to my blog, which is Lessons from a Startup Life. And you can email me at Doug Levin at my Substack. But I just want to thank you for your attention. And Xander, it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much, Doug, for all of this. It was very insightful, inspirational, a lot of new knowledge that everyone learned today. So thank you for that. I want to thank everyone for joining. We have a link in the chat to give us some feedback on the event. We'd appreciate that. And we would love to see you in future events. On Monday, we have an in-person one, so maybe we'll see you then. So then that leaves me to say thanks for joining, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.